Our fourth Chapter 7 presentation deals with burglary. Burglary was defined under the common law as, traditionally, was defined as breaking and entering a dwelling at night to commit a crime therein. So there were several key elements and specific elements to traditional burglary. You had to break and enter. So that means you had to, the door couldn't be wide open and you just walked in, but you had to somehow maybe lift the window or push the shut door open or whatever it may be. And you also had to enter. Now you didn't have to completely enter. Somebody might have detected you and screamed before you could get inside the window that you just opened. So even if only part of your body made it inside the window, you could still be guilty of burglary. So burglary was a specific kind of trespass in essence. You didn't have to, like our other property crimes like theft, you didn't have to actually steal anything, although that could be the crime that you were trying to accomplish when you were breaking and entering. Maybe you were breaking and entering so you could steal things once you were inside. But the crime of burglary focused on the breaking and entering, and historically it was breaking and entering a dwelling. So it had to be someone's home. And also we threw an additional element because, again, this was a more serious form of trespass. It was breaking and entering into a dwelling at night, because we thought that was more dangerous if you were acting under the cover of darkness than if you were acting during the day. Well, the Model Penal Code retains some of those elements. But first, before we get into the actual definition of burglary, we have to deal with a couple definitions of the elements of burglary. So, for instance, the Model Penal Code will talk about occupied structure. That means any structure, even if it's a vehicle or a place like a tent or some other kind of shelter that isn't normally considered to be a home, but it's adapted for overnight accommodations. So if it's adapted so that you could sleep in it, then it would be considered an occupied structure. It could also be a structure that's designed for carrying on business, so it's some kind of business establishment. So either of those things were considered occupied structures. In order to be an occupied structure, it doesn't matter whether someone was actually present, sleeping in, or doing business in the structure when the burglary occurred. So the place could have been emptied when the burglary occurred. Not abandoned, but just emptied at the moment. So nobody was sleeping there at the time. Nobody was doing business there at the time. Night is defined by the Model Penal Code as 30 minutes after sunset until 30 minutes before sunrise. Burglary under the Model Penal Code is defined as someone entering a building or occupied structure or separately secured or occupied portion thereof with purpose to commit a crime therein. And so there are more things to it, but we'll stop there for a second. Okay, so the person had to enter a building or occupied structure, and we just defined occupied structure, or separately secured or occupied portion thereof. So it wasn't just the building itself or the occupied structure, but the area immediately adjacent to the building, the home, the business, whatever it may be. It could also be considered part of the home, part of the business. So it had to be immediately adjacent to it. Didn't have to necessarily be physically attached, but pretty close to it. So again, it could be something like your back porch, your front porch, and a really small fenced-in area in your backyard that's attached to your house. These things are known as curtilage. That's a key term in your chapter. It couldn't be the 100 acres on the backside of your ranch. Okay, that would be too much, but it had to be a small area immediately adjacent to your home, to your business, so that most people would consider it basically part of your house. So that could also be included. That's also included in the definition of the Model Penal Code burglary. So again, it's entering a building, occupied structure, or the curtilage with the purpose to commit a crime therein. So once you're inside, you want to commit a crime. So it's not just breaking into the structure just to get inside because it's cold outside and you're going to break in to get warmed up, or it's for some other reason you're breaking into the structure, you have to also have the additional intention of committing a crime once you're in. So the exception in the Model Penal Code is it's not going to be burglary if the premises are open to the public at the time you go inside. So if it's Walmart open 24 hours a day, you can't really commit burglary against Walmart, even if your intention is to steal things once you're inside. Also, it's not burglary if you were authorized to come inside the structure. So maybe you're a house guest and you're authorized to come in. Maybe you're an employee, you're authorized to come into the business. You would not be guilty of burglary, even if you planned to commit a crime once you were inside. Also, it's an affirmative defense for the defendant to show that the building or structure was abandoned. So if this is a condemned house in the middle of the city, and you break into it so that you can smoke crack inside, you want to turn this into a crack house, you cannot be charged with burglary. You could be charged with trespass, and obviously you could be charged with the drug crimes, but you would not be charged with burglary because it was an abandoned building. And so if it's not being used at the time, if it's not occupied at the time you break and enter, you can't be guilty of burglary. It has to be an occupied structure. It has to be a building, a dwelling that people are actually using. And so remember, again, burglary is a more severe form of trespass. So we have these additional. If you break into a home at nighttime, then we consider that a more serious form of burglary, and it'll be a second-degree felony. We'll see that generally burglary is a third-degree felony, but if it's the more serious offense of breaking into a dwelling at night, then that's a second-degree felony. Also, it's a second-degree felony even if it's not nighttime, even if it's not a dwelling. If in the course of committing the offense, so in the course of committing the burglary, you purposely, knowingly, or recklessly inflict or attempt to inflict bodily injury on anyone. So let's say you're breaking into a business, it's nighttime, and, well, let's say it's daytime. Let's change our facts a little bit. It's daytime. You're breaking into a business that's not open to the public at the time. Maybe it's a Sunday and it's not open, but it's daytime. And so you're breaking into it and you think it's empty, but it turns out there's a security guard inside. So you sneak up on the security guard and you hit the security guard to knock the security guard unconscious. That would be a second-degree felony because you actually hurt someone, or maybe you only attempted to hurt them. They turned around and saw you before you could hit them. Nonetheless, that could be upgraded to second-degree burglary or second-degree felony burglary if you actually did hurt or attempt to hurt someone. Also, even if you didn't hurt anyone, even if there was no one inside, if you're armed with a deadly weapon or explosive, so if you have a gun, a knife, anything like that, then that would be considered second-degree burglary because obviously it's more dangerous. The potential for more danger is there. All other kinds of burglaries are third-degree felonies. So if it's not a dwelling at night, if you don't hurt anyone, if you aren't armed, then it's a third-degree felony. If you break into some structure, occupied structure, with the intent to commit a crime. Finally, we will not charge you or convict you of multiple crimes if certain conditions exist. So you won't be charged with burglary and the substantive crime, for instance, if you actually commit that crime. So if you want to smoke your crack inside someone's house, so it's not an abandoned property like we mentioned before, but it's someone's house, and so you break into their house to smoke some crack, if that's not a first or second degree felony in your jurisdiction, or let's change it, instead of crack, let's change it to marijuana. So if in your jurisdiction possession of marijuana is a lower level, maybe a misdemeanor, if you break into someone's house and you are arrested, you're eventually caught and you're arrested for smoking marijuana, we're not going to charge you with burglary also. Basically, that crime includes the burglary. Likewise, if you attempt to commit the offense, we're not going to charge you with the attempt to commit the offense and the burglary. It will be one or the other. The exception is if the crime you're intending to commit is a first or second degree felony. So if you're breaking into someone's house to kill that person, even if you kill them, we can still charge you with murder and burglary. We can charge you with both. But if it's a lower level crime, we won't charge you with both. It'll be one or the other.